I need to tell you about something that happened to me in high school. Not because I'm looking for sympathy, but because it changed everything about who I became. And 23 years later, I'm still processing what it cost me. My name is Daniel, and I grew up in Riverside, Pennsylvania, a mid-sized town outside Pittsburgh, where high school football was religion and student council was basically royalty. My dad, Paul Montgomery, managed a hardware store. My mom, Shannon, worked part-time at the library. We lived in a 3-bedroom ranch in a solid middle-class neighborhood, the kind of stability that's supposed to be enough. I was a good student, 3.9 GPA, honors classes, consistently in the top 15%. Not naturally brilliant, but I worked for every grade. I wasn't athletic, wasn't popular, but I wasn't bullied either. I existed in that vast middle territory with my small group of friends. Colin Whitaker, Brandon Fletcher, and Derek Prescott. We ate lunch together, played video games on weekends, complained about homework. The thing I actually cared about was debate club. I joined freshman year after my English teacher, Mrs. Lydia Coleman, suggested it. I was terrible at first, but the coach, Mr. Jeremy Langford, saw potential. You do the research better than anyone, he told me. You just need to trust yourself when speaking. I worked obsessively, practiced in mirrors, recorded myself, analyzed every pause and hesitation. By junior year, I placed 4th at the state tournament, the highest any Central Valley student had placed in 5 years. My parents cried at the awards ceremony. For a few weeks, I felt like someone who mattered. But at school, almost nobody noticed. The football team had won regionals that same weekend. Debate got a single paragraph in the school newsletter, page 3. I wasn't bitter. I understood football mattered more, but it reinforced something. The things I was good at didn't make you visible at Central Valley High. School. Still, I believed in the school. I thought it valued merit and fairness. I'd watched student council operate for years, organizing events, representing students at board meetings. It seemed meaningful. Senior year, I decided to apply for one of the 4 representative positions. The application process was straightforward. Written essay, 50 student signatures, interview with a selection committee. The committee consisted of Principal Gregory Whitaker, Vice Principal Elena Prescott, Student Activities Coordinator Ms. Vanessa Harrington, and current Council President Trevor Sheffield. Trevor was everything I wasn't. 6'2", athletic, effortlessly confident. Captain of the lacrosse team, dated the head cheerleader, could walk into any room and command attention. Not mean, just existing in a completely different universe. I spent 2 weeks on my application, 8 pages outlining specific initiatives, improving club coordination, creating policy proposal mechanisms, establishing a peer tutoring database. Nothing revolutionary, but concrete and achievable. I got 62 signatures in 3 days. Kids from debate club, classmates I'd helped, people from various activities. 62 students thought I should be on student council. That had to count for something. My interview was Thursday at 3:30. I wore khaki pants, a blue button-down, my dad's navy tie. I wanted to look professional, serious, like someone who understood responsibility. When I entered Principal Whitaker's office, the committee sat behind a long table. I sat in a single chair facing them, looking up slightly. I wondered if that was intentional. "Thank you for applying," Principal Whitaker began. "Your application was very thorough. Tell us why you want to serve on student council." I delivered my prepared answer about making practical improvements, not just organizing events, about having the research and communication skills from debate to help implement real changes. Vice Principal Prescott asked about translating debate experience to council work. I explained. Research thoroughly, consider multiple perspectives, articulate positions clearly. Trevor even said he was impressed by my club coordination ideas. I started to relax. This was going well. Then Ms. Harrington leaned forward. Daniel, when you think about student council members, what role do they play beyond policy work? They represent student interests to administration and the community, I said carefully. Exactly. They're ambassadors for Central Valley. They attend board meetings, participate in community events, appear in promotional materials. They're the face of our school. When people think about Central Valley, when they picture our student leaders, what do you think they see? Something shifted in the room. Students who are committed to making the school better, I said. Sure, but more specifically, what image comes to mind? What profile? I looked at Trevor. He was staring at his hands. Students who are accomplished and dedicated, I said. Ms. Harrington nodded slowly. They also see students who embody Central Valley's spirit, students with a certain presence, a certain profile that aligns with how we want to be perceived. My stomach tightened. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by profile, I said, though I was beginning to understand exactly. Principal Whitaker cleared his throat. Student council members serve a dual role. Yes, they do policy work, but they also represent Central Valley publicly. They need to walk into rooms of parents and donors and make people feel proud of Central Valley. They need to project confidence and leadership that inspires trust. I looked at Vice Principal Prescott. She watched me with an unreadable expression. I think I can do that. I've represented the school at debate tournaments. You're very bright, Vice Principal Prescott interrupted. Nobody questions that, but brightness isn't the only quality we're looking for. We need students with natural ability to connect with people, who can command a room, who can make stakeholders feel confident in Central Valley's leadership. The thing about institutional rejection is it's never explicit. They use words like presence and profile, and natural ability to connect. They build euphemisms that give them plausible deniability while making their meaning absolutely clear. I sat there in my borrowed tie and understood exactly what they were telling me. I wasn't charismatic enough. I didn't have the right look, personality, social status. I was too awkward, too serious, too forgettable. I made Central Valley look ordinary rather than exceptional. So you're rejecting my application? Principal Whitaker spread his hands sympathetically. We haven't made final decisions, but I want to be honest about our criteria. Student council is highly competitive. We must consider which students will best serve the school's interests holistically. My application included specific policy proposals. Doesn't that matter? It matters, Ms. Harrington said gently. But it's not the only thing. Sometimes that means recognizing certain students might contribute better in other ways. What other ways? Continue with debate. Keep up your academic work. Those are valuable contributions. But not valuable enough for student council. Silence. Trevor shifted, still not looking at me. We're looking for a specific type of leader, Vice Principal Prescott said. Students who can be the public face of Central Valley in ways that enhance the school's reputation. Is there an appeals process? Principal Whitaker's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe annoyance. The committee's decisions are typically final, but you can appeal to the school board if you believe the process was conducted unfairly. I walked out without looking at them. The hallway echoed with my footsteps. I went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and stood there, breathing carefully. I'd believed merit mattered, that hard work and qualifications would be recognized, that Central Valley was fair. In 30 minutes, All of that had been revealed as naive bullshit. That night, I told my parents. My dad got angry, quiet, simmering anger. He wanted to fight. My mom was more measured. If you appeal, we'll support you, but understand it might make things harder. These people write your college recommendations. I spent the weekend thinking. Part of me wanted to let it go, but another part, the debate-trained part, couldn't accept this. They'd rejected me based on unstated subjective criteria. That wasn't just unfair to me. It was unfair to the entire concept of what student council should represent. Monday morning, I filed a formal appeal. I spent a week crafting my statement. Factual, specific, outlined my qualifications, noted I'd met all stated requirements, argued the selection process used unstated criteria, potentially violating the school's own policies on fair selection. My dad helped me refine it. This is good. You're giving them a choice. Admit their criteria were inappropriate or document them going forward. The school board meeting was 2 weeks later. My parents and I sat in the district administration building while the board worked through routine business. When my appeal came up, Principal Whitaker presented the administration's position. He was smooth, professional, almost sympathetic. He praised my academic record and debate achievements. Explained student council positions were highly competitive, requiring difficult choices based on totality of each candidate's profile. Noted the process included student input from Trevor. Their process was thorough and fair. Then I read my statement. 3 minutes, carefully controlled. I outlined qualifications, explained I'd met all stated requirements, quoted their language about presence and profile, argued these criteria weren't documented anywhere and appeared subjectively applied. The board deliberated 12 minutes. When they returned, Chairwoman Sabrina Montgomery delivered the decision. We find the selection process was conducted appropriately. Student council requires academic qualifications plus interpersonal skills, enabling effective representation. The committee used professional judgment. We have full confidence in their decision. We're denying your appeal. I stood there with my parents and felt something crack inside. A small, clean break. We drove home in silence. The next day, everyone knew. I'd challenged administration and lost. Some kids were sympathetic. Most moved on. Some popular kids looked at me differently now, like I'd committed a social transgression, unable to accept my place gracefully. Trevor approached me in the hallway. "Hey, Daniel, I wanted to say, I argued for you in committee. I thought your application was strong." I looked at him. He seemed genuine, maybe guilty, but he'd still been part of the system that rejected me. "Thanks," I said flatly, and kept walking. The rejection didn't just disappear. It sat with me, changed how I saw everything. I started noticing how certain kids always got leadership positions regardless of qualifications, how teachers treated popular students differently, how the school's promotional materials featured the same types of students repeatedly. I realized Central Valley had an image it wanted to project, and I didn't fit that image. I was evidence of the parts they didn't want to advertise, unglamorous students who worked hard but didn't shine. The worst part was internalization. I started seeing myself through their eyes, too quiet, too serious, too forgettable. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who didn't represent anything important. Senior year continued. I watched Trevor and the council lead rallies, organize events, represent Central Valley at community functions. I hated them for it, not because they did anything wrong, but because they reminded me of my inadequacy. College applications started in fall. My grades were strong, 3.9 GPA, 1410 SAT, state debate placement. I applied to Penn and Carnegie Mellon as reaches, Penn State and Pitt as targets, Temple and Westchester as safeties. I needed teacher recommendations. Mr. Langford wrote enthusiastically. Mrs. Coleman was supportive. But my AP government teacher, Mr. Sean Callahan, hesitated when I asked. "I can write one," he said. "But I should tell you, I'm friends with Principal Whitaker. I know about the student council situation. My recommendation needs to provide an honest assessment, including your ability to handle disappointment and work within institutional structures." I asked someone else. But the damage was done. The rejection had created a mark. I was a student who'd challenged administration, made a problem, demonstrated difficulty accepting decisions. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Tara Donovan, was professional but cool. She mentioned her recommendation would include the full picture of my high school experience, how you've handled disappointments and interacted with school administration. I never saw it, but learned later it described me as academically strong but sometimes inflexible, with difficulty accepting institutional decisions. My reach schools rejected me. Penn State accepted me with minimal aid. I ended up at Lehigh Valley State University, a decent regional school, 90 minutes from home. Not bad, but not what I'd hoped for. Not the kind of place that would have impressed anyone. I felt like the system had categorized me correctly. They'd identified me as someone without special potential, and the universe confirmed their assessment. Graduation came. I sat in my blue gown, listening to speeches about dreams and leadership. Trevor gave the student council president's address. Confident, articulate, exactly what the administration wanted. I clapped politely. The summer before college, I worked at my dad's hardware store, stocking shelves, helping customers, existing in a holding pattern. I saw Trevor once at the coffee shop. We waved. We didn't talk. I started college with no enthusiasm. Lehigh Valley State was pleasant enough. My roommate, Colin Prescott, was friendly, tried to include me in activities. I declined most invitations. I was there to get a degree, not pretend I belonged somewhere. I declared business administration because it seemed practical. Went to classes, did readings, turned in assignments. My grades were fine, mostly B's, some A's. I was checking boxes, moving through the system, but I was going through motions. Didn't join clubs, didn't make close friends. Spent weekends in my room studying or watching movies or staring at the ceiling. The student council rejection was still there, festering. I'd replay the interview at random moments. Ms. Harrington's smile. Principal Whitaker's careful explanations. Trevor's guilty silence. Freshman year dragged on. I barely spoke in classes. When I did, my voice was quiet, uncertain. Professors waited impatiently to call on more dynamic students. I felt invisible even in rooms where I was physically present. In spring semester, I had a business ethics class with Dr. Jeremy Fletcher, group project on corporate governance. I was assigned to work with Derek Callahan and two others. Derek immediately took charge, assigning me to research and background work. The invisible labor we presented in April. Derek talked for 15 minutes. I read my 2-minute section from note cards. We got a B+. Dr. Fletcher praised Derek's leadership. The rest of us weren't mentioned. I walked back to my dorm afterward and sat on my bed for a long time, staring at nothing. This was my life. Group projects doing background work while others got credit. Classes where I was invisible. A long, mediocre trajectory where I worked hard, stayed unnoticed, and watched people like Derek and Trevor succeed, and I realized I had a choice. I could accept this, settle into invisibility, get my degree, find some middle management job, live quietly, or I could change something fundamental. The thing that got me rejected wasn't lack of qualification. It was lack of presence, visibility, whatever quality made people notice and invest in you. I'd assumed merit alone would suffice. That was naive. Institutions don't recognize merit in isolation. They recognize merit combined with visibility, social proof, ability to represent their brand favorably. That realization was crushing and liberating. Crushing because everything I'd believed was wrong. Liberating because the problem was solvable. I couldn't change my past, but I could change how I presented myself going forward. That summer at the hardware store, I watched how my dad interacted with customers, learning names, remembering details, building relationships. I started doing the same. When regulars came in, I'd greet them by name, ask about projects, make recommendations. My dad noticed. "You're getting better with people." I didn't tell him it was deliberate practice, training for becoming someone who registered in people's awareness. Sophomore year, I returned with a plan. I was going to become visible through consistent strategic action. I started attending professors' office hours regularly, not just for questions, but to build relationships. Ask thoughtful questions, discuss their research, show genuine interest, be pleasant, engaged, easy to talk to. Within a month, professors remembered my name. By semester's end, they were calling on me more frequently, engaging with my contributions seriously. My grades improved. 3.6 GPA. Not because I worked harder, but because professors who knew me gave benefit of doubt on borderline grades, wrote stronger recommendations. I joined the Economics Club and Business Strategy Association. Didn't aim for leadership immediately. Made myself useful instead, volunteering for unglamorous tasks, showing up consistently, doing quality work without complaining. After one semester, people asked my opinion. After 2, I was recruited for leadership. I also changed how I dressed. 3 good pairs of pants, 5 button-downs, 1 blazer from a thrift store, 1 pair of good shoes, carefully maintained, regular haircuts. Small changes that added up. People treated me differently. I wasn't invisible anymore. I applied for scholarships and won 2, $1,500 and $2,000, reducing my loans by $3,500. That money proved the system rewarded visibility as much as merit. Junior year, I was elected treasurer of Business Strategy Association. I managed a $15,000 budget, organized our conference, built relationships with corporate sponsors. One sponsor was Whitaker and Associates, a consulting firm that gave us $3,000. I managed that relationship carefully. In March, their recruitment coordinator, Marissa Coleman, emailed, "Daniel, I've been impressed with your professionalism. We have summer internships. Interested?" I was. I applied, interviewed, got offered a paid internship in Philadelphia. That summer changed everything. The work was demanding, 60-hour weeks supporting consulting teams, building financial models, conducting research, creating presentations, analyzing data. Largely invisible work, but I was learning how businesses made decisions, how capital moved, what made companies valuable. Senior consultants started requesting me specifically. Partners remembered my name. I was building a reputation for quality work delivered quickly and independently. Marisa was my supervisor. Towards summer's end, she took me to coffee. "You're good at this, Daniel. Quality analysis, meeting deadlines, working independently. That's rarer than you think." She connected me with 6 Lehigh Valley alums in Philadelphia, consulting and finance. Real connections, people who'd remember me. Senior year, I received 3 job offers before graduation. Entry-level analyst. Positions: $52,000, $55,000, $58,000. I chose the highest. Coleman Prescott Financial, a boutique investment firm. Graduated with 3.65 GPA. A job lined up. $35,000 in loans. I didn't attend commencement. Couldn't face sitting in a stadium pretending to feel accomplished when mostly I felt relieved. I moved to Philadelphia, found a studio in Fishtown, started work. The office was glass and steel. 30 employees, 4 senior partners. The work was grueling, 60 to 80-hour weeks, building models, conducting due diligence, creating presentations, researching markets. Most work was invisible, but I was learning. I applied everything about strategic visibility, made sure partners knew my name, volunteered for high-profile projects, built client relationships through preparation and follow-through. The student council rejection was still there, but it had evolved. Not an open wound, cold fuel. A reminder that institutions never validated on merit alone, that I needed to be strategic and relentless. After 2 years, promoted to Analyst 2. After 4, Senior Analyst. Salary increased. $55,000, $72,000, $95,000, $115,000. Enough to pay down loans, build savings, invest personally. I took courses in analytics and machine learning, attended conferences, read constantly, built expertise. I didn't have many friends. Colleagues I'd grab drinks with sometimes, but I kept relationships surface level. Didn't date seriously, didn't form deep attachments. I was pleasant and professional but maintained distance, because I remembered what happened when I invested emotionally in institutions. When I was 28, 7 years into Coleman Prescott, I identified an opportunity the partners overlooked. The firm focused on established companies in traditional industries, but I'd been tracking education technology, specifically a company called TeachCore that had developed adaptive learning software for K-12 math. They were seeking Series B funding, but struggling, because EdTech wasn't seen as high growth. I saw the fundamentals. Product worked, measurable student improvement. Market was massive. Business model was sound. SaaS subscriptions with strong retention. Team was exceptional. I brought it to the partners. They were skeptical. Education is difficult. Long sales cycles, budget constraints. Why take that risk? Because fundamentals are strong, I said. I'd built detailed analysis, market projections, competitive landscape, customer acquisition modeling. After 3 weeks of debate, they agreed to let me lead a $2 million investment for 12% equity. I worked closely with TeachCore over 18 months. The company grew faster than projected. Within 2 years, contracts in 15 states. Within 4, acquired by Pearson for $180 million. Our $2 million returned $21.6 million. My share based on compensation structure, approximately $400,000. That was the moment everything changed. Not the money itself, but proof I could identify, opportunities others missed. Execute complex deals, that my judgment was worth trusting. The partners offered me junior partnership. I was 30. I accepted, but started thinking bigger. I'd learned how capital worked, how to evaluate companies, how to build relationships, and I wondered if I wanted to stay or build something myself. At 32, I left Coleman Prescott and founded Harrington Capital. The name was deliberate, a private reminder of Ms. Harrington from Central Valley, who'd smiled while explaining I didn't embody the school's spirit. I had $3 million of my own capital. Not much compared to major funds, but enough to start. I focused on what I knew: education technology, workforce development, B2B software, addressing institutional inefficiencies. Not flashy consumer apps, but companies solving real problems. First investment, SkillBridge, helping community colleges track student outcomes. $250,000 for 8% equity. Second, HireWell, streamlining hiring for mid-sized companies. $300,000 for 10%. Third, Student Path, helping districts identify struggling students early. $400,000 for 12%. Not sexy investments, not featured in TechCrunch, but solving real problems I understood intimately. Over 5 years, 18 investments. 6 succeeded significantly, 5 times to 15 times returns. 5 achieved moderate success, 2 times to 4 times. 5 struggled but reached acceptable exits, 1 times to 2 times. 2 failed completely. Overall returns, approximately 4.8 times. Very good for a first-time fund manager. I raised a second fund at $12 million. That fund performed even better, 6.2 times returns. By 38, Harrington Capital managed $35 million. I'd hired 2 analysts and an operations manager. The firm had a reputation as a serious investor in B2B institutional software. I was becoming someone with influence. My assessment carried weight. My introductions got answered. At conferences, entrepreneurs sought me out. I was 40, running a successful firm, financially secure. Approximately $8 million net worth. Owned a nice condo, had professional respect. I'd built this through strategic thinking, relentless work, absolute refusal to accept Central Valley's limitations. The student council rejection was still there, always there, but it had become fuel rather than shame. Then, spring, when I turned 40, I got a call from Central Valley High School, Pittsburgh area code. I almost didn't answer. "Hello, this is Daniel." "Hi Daniel, Shannon Prescott from Central Valley Development Office. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "What is this regarding?" "We're reaching out to successful alumni for our Transforming Tomorrow Capital campaign. Planning major renovations, athletic facilities, technology infrastructure, establishing an endowment for student programs." She paused. "We've been following your career. Principal Whitaker specifically mentioned we should contact you. He's very impressed by what you've accomplished." Principal Whitaker. The same man who'd explained 22 years ago that I didn't have the right presence. "How did you get my information?" "We maintain alumni records and research their careers. Your success has been notable." "I see. We're assembling an advisory board. The board will provide strategic guidance and help with outreach. We hope each member will commit to donating at least $50,000 over 5 years. $50,000 to the school that rejected me based on profile. I appreciate you reaching out. Can I think about this?" "Of course. Principal Whitaker mentioned he'd love to reconnect if you're ever in the area. He's approaching retirement and focused on leaving a strong legacy." "I'll be in touch," I said, and ended the call. I sat at my desk, staring at the Philadelphia skyline. My hands were shaking. They wanted my money. After 22 years, after rejecting me, after limiting my college options, they wanted my money. Because now I represented Central Valley well. Now I had the right profile. Now my success could enhance their fundraising. The irony was almost beautiful. Over the next week, I thought constantly about responses. Say yes, write a check, be gracious. the bigger person who'd move past disappointments. But that would mean validating them, pretending the rejection hadn't mattered. Say no and explain why. Remind them of the rejection. Quote their language about presence and profile. Explain how it affected my trajectory. But explanations were gifts they didn't deserve. Explanations gave them opportunity to defend, reframe, diminish, or just say no. Simple refusal, no explanation. Deny them access without opportunity to salvage the relationship. That felt right. Shannon called again a week later. I let it go to voicemail. She left a cheerful message hoping I was still considering. 2 weeks later, a FedEx package. Glossy brochure about the campaign. Handwritten letter from Principal Whitaker. Dear Daniel, I was delighted to learn about your remarkable success with Harrington Capital. As someone devoted to education, I take particular pride when Central Valley alumni make such meaningful contributions. The Transforming Tomorrow campaign represents a pivotal moment. We can dramatically improve facilities and resources, ensuring the next generation receives the same strong foundation that prepared you for your achievements. I'm approaching retirement after 32 years and focused on leaving a lasting legacy. Your involvement, strategic guidance, and financial support would mean a great deal personally and to the school community. I would enjoy reconnecting to discuss your journey and explore how you might support today's students. With warm regards, Principal Gregory Whitaker. I read it 3 times. Each reading made me angrier. The same strong foundation that prepared you for your achievements. They'd given me no foundation. They'd rejected me, limited me, marked me as a problem. Everything I'd achieved was in spite of Central Valley, not because of it. I filed the letter without responding. 3 weeks later, email from Trevor Sheffield. Subject: Central Valley Capital Campaign, would love to reconnect. Hey Daniel, hope you're doing well. I'm on the advisory board and asked to reach out to fellow alumni who might be interested. It's been a long time. I've followed your career from afar, really impressed by what you've built with Harrington Capital. I always knew you were smart and driven. I remember how seriously you took debate and academics. Even if you're too busy for the board, hope you'll consider donating to support Central Valley students. The work we're planning will really make a difference. Would love to grab coffee sometime if you're in Pittsburgh. Best, Trevor. Trevor, who'd sat on the committee that rejected me, who'd claimed he argued for me, but not effectively enough. I always knew you were smart and driven, but not smart and driven enough for student council, not the right kind of smart. I could write back, remind him of the interview, his guilty silence. But what would be the point? Trevor probably didn't remember details. It had been one committee meeting among dozens, quickly forgotten. For me, the defining moment of my adolescence. For him, Tuesday afternoon in October. The asymmetry was staggering. I deleted the email. Over 6 months, requests continued. Phone calls from development, all to voicemail. Emails from advisory board members, deleted unread. Personal letter from Ms. Harrington, retired, filed away. Invitation to alumni reception in Philadelphia, declined without explanation. Each request confirmed. They needed me now. I had resources they wanted. I represented Central Valley well now that I could write large checks. And I had all the power. I could choose whether to engage. They could only ask, increasingly desperately, and hope. In November, Principal Whitaker called my office directly. My assistant put him through. Daniel, it's Principal Whitaker from Central Valley. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Warm, friendly, like old colleagues. What can I do for you? I wanted to reach out personally about our campaign. I know you've received several communications. I understand you're busy, but I was hoping we could talk. I'm in Philadelphia next month for a conference. Perhaps coffee? I appreciate the outreach, but I'm not interested in serving on the advisory board. Pause, recalibrating. I completely understand if the time commitment is too much. But even if you can't serve, I was hoping you might consider contributing. The work we're doing will really transform the school. I'm not interested in contributing either. Longer pause. May I ask why? You've clearly done very well, and Central Valley was an important part of your foundation. This was the moment. I could tell him why. Remind him of the rejection, the euphemisms, the appeal he'd upheld. Explain how Central Valley contributed nothing except demonstrating how institutions operate. But explanations were gifts he didn't deserve. They'd give him opportunity to defend, minimize, suggest I was unreasonable, and I didn't owe him explanation. He'd had the power when I was 17. Now I had it, and I could exercise it without justification. I have my own philanthropic priorities. I'm sure you'll find other donors. Daniel, I sense some hesitation. If there's something I'm missing, there's nothing to understand. I've made my position clear. I wish you well, but I won't be participating. If this is about something that happened when you were a student, Principal Whitaker, I have a meeting in 2 minutes. Thank you for calling. I hung up. My hand was shaking. After 22 years, his voice still triggered something visceral. But this time, I'd had the power. I'd been the one they needed. And I'd denied them access without explanation, without negotiation, without giving them any opportunity to salvage the relationship. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 2 decades. Requests continued a few more months, then tapered off. By spring, they'd stopped. I followed the campaign occasionally. They raised $8.5 million, significantly less than their $15 million goal, but enough for some improvements. Athletic facilities renovated, technology upgraded, endowment established, though smaller than planned. Their materials featured donor testimonials. Trevor prominently quoted along with other successful alumni. My absence never mentioned, but I knew they noticed. A successful alumnus who refused to participate, who couldn't be persuaded. I'd become a gap in their narrative, and I started my own scholarship program. Not through Central Valley, never that satisfaction, but through a separate nonprofit, the Montgomery Merit Scholarship Foundation. Available to Pennsylvania high school seniors, demonstrating strong academics combined with leadership in non-athletic extracurriculars, debate, robotics, academic clubs, community service, activities that didn't generate crowds but reflected genuine intellectual engagement. I prioritize middle-income students, smart and hard-working, but without social advantages that made them obvious candidates. Students who might be overlooked by committees valuing presence and profile over qualifications. Students like I'd been. Started at $10,000 per year for 4 students, all funded personally. Within 3 years, $15,000 for 8 students. Within 5, $25,000 for 12. I met with recipients occasionally, lunch or coffee when they visited Philadelphia colleges. Serious kids, often awkward, carrying their own wounds from being underestimated. I didn't tell them about my rejection, but I tried to show them paths to success that didn't require institutional validation. Some flourished, some struggled, but all knew someone had invested in them based on what they'd actually accomplished, not who they appeared to be. I'm 43 now. Harrington Capital manages $85 million, 62 investments total, top quartile returns, 8 employees, featured in Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg, speaking at conferences about identifying overlooked opportunities, financially secure beyond my parents' dreams, approximately $18 million net worth, own a 3-bedroom condo in Rittenhouse Square, bought cash, max out retirement accounts, donate significantly. I've built exactly the life I envisioned as revenge, and it still costs me something essential. I think about who I might have been if Central Valley had said yes. Would I have been less driven? Certainly. Built Harrington Capital? Probably not. Been happier? I genuinely don't know. But the rejection changed something fundamental about how I relate to people and institutions. I learned to never trust them, never invest emotionally, always maintain strategic distance. That served me professionally, made me careful, disciplined, resistant to herd mentality, but it left me isolated. I don't have close friends, professional relationships, people I respect, but no one I'd call in a crisis, no one who knows about the rejection or understands how it shaped me, no one I've let close enough to see the wound. I've dated occasionally, but never seriously. Relationships that lasted months before falling apart when it became clear I wasn't capable of real vulnerability. I keep people at the same distance I keep institutions, close enough to function, far enough to avoid attachment. Last fall, I got invited to my 25th reunion. Planning committee chaired by Trevor, enthusiastic email about amazing accomplishments. Several notable alumni they hoped would attend, my name on the list. I stared at that email 3 days before deleting it. The idea of walking into that gymnasium, seeing people who'd watched my rejection and done nothing, making small talk with Trevor and former council members, being treated as a success, story by the institution that dismissed me, it made me physically ill, but I wondered what I'd say if I went. Not to Principal Whitaker, he'd be retired, but to kids I'd gone to school with, ones who'd signed my petition, witnessed my rejection, moved on. Would I tell them what happened? Explain that their school rejected a qualified candidate based on image, and that rejection defined 25 years? Would they care? Would they remember? That's the hardest part. For me, the student council rejection is the organizing principle of my entire adult life. Every decision, every success, every relationship kept at arm's length, all traces back to that moment when I learned merit wasn't enough. But for them, probably just another day, another administrative decision they barely noticed. The asymmetry is devastating. They moved on immediately. I never moved on. I won. By every objective measure, built a successful career, accumulated wealth, created a scholarship program, denied Central Valley the satisfaction of claiming credit. When they needed me, I had power to simply refuse. But sitting here looking at the reunion invitation I'll never accept, I realize winning didn't heal the wound. It just proved the wound was real, that it mattered enough to shape an entire life. Principal Whitaker is retired now, living in Pittsburgh suburbs, enjoying his pension, not thinking about the student he rejected in 2001. Why would he? One of thousands of decisions during his career. Ms. Harrington is retired. Trevor is a successful marketing executive in New York, married with kids, probably reminiscing about high school achievements. None of them think about what they did to me. None remember the interview, the euphemisms, the rejection that seemed reasonable to them, but catastrophic to me. None understand they casually broke something in a 17-year-old that never healed. And maybe that's the lesson. Institutions hurt people casually, thoughtlessly, pursuing their own interests. The people running them rarely recognize the damage because they're focused on outcomes that matter to them. Reputation, image, smooth operation of systems not designed with individuals in mind. My rejection wasn't personal to them. just how systems operate, just applying criteria, just doing their jobs. But it was personal to me, and that asymmetry between their casual indifference and my defining trauma is something I still don't know how to resolve. I've spent $2.8 million on my scholarship program. We'll probably spend another $5 million over the next decade. Every scholarship is a small monument to the kid I was, the kid who believed merit mattered and learned it didn't. I'm helping students who might be overlooked. That matters. That's real. That's something I control. But it doesn't fill the hollow space inside. Doesn't give me back the 2 decades spent proving myself to people who never cared. Doesn't make me whole. I won. But I don't know what I won, or if it was worth the cost, or if I'll ever stop being defined by a rejection that happened when I was 17. And that's the truth I'll carry for the rest of my life. Stories like this happen more often than we think. Subscribe if you want to hear the ones that usually stay unspoken. And if this story made you pause, a like helps the channel grow.